In recent years, US politics has had a significant impact on Australian financial markets, so there was plenty of attention on the midterm elections. The main focus for markets was control of the House of Representatives. President Biden passed his signature fiscal package on pandemic relief in 2021 and green energy, prescription drugs and healthcare in 2022 using the Democrats' House majority and 50-50 Senate, where Vice President Harris casts the tie-breaking vote. In terms of delivering election pledges, only the 2022 infrastructure bill passed with bipartisan support. A similar dynamic occurred under President Trump, with his legislation focused on corporate tax cuts passing in 2017 ahead of the Republicans being swept from control of the House in the 2018 midterm elections. A week after Election Day, the Democrats have maintained narrow control of the Senate, but Republicans appear likely to retake control of the House from the Democrats, albeit a lot more narrowly than was expected. Despite the narrow margin, this ensures a completely different dynamic for the 2 years from the 3rd of January 2023. Like Trump, Biden can forget about any major new fiscal legislation that would increase a budget deficit running at a hefty 5.5% of GDP. Bond markets may welcome a period of tighter fiscal policy, which should reduce pressure on the Federal Reserve to raise rates further to cool the economy. What will be a lot less welcome is the high probability that a Republican-led House will generate standoffs over raising the debt ceiling and funding the government, potentially leading to shutdowns. To be sure, a number of Republican officials insist that they will not risk the debt default that would result from the limit not being raised in time. But many Republican House representatives will demand a substantive quid pro quo for agreeing to raise the debt limit from its current $31.4 trillion. This could include cuts in social spending programs or demands to reverse some parts of the Inflation Reduction Act. Of course, in theory, if the House Republican leadership wants to avoid default and upsetting markets, it could invite Democrats for support to pass a bipartisan debt limit increase. But this seems likely to infuriate the Republican base and many House Republicans. The most obvious parallel is with 2011, when President Obama faced an emboldened Republican House majority. While a default was narrowly avoided, the multi-month standoff prompted S&P to cut their US credit rating from AAA to AA+ on the 5th of August 2011. Bloomberg economists estimate that a similar showdown in 2023 could cut US GDP growth by almost 1%. The dramatic 2011 standoff reverberated around the world. A flight to safety sparked intervention by the Bank of Japan and Swiss National Bank to stem the surge in their currencies. The Australian dollar was extremely high in July 2011, around $1.10, bolstered by the gap between the RBA cash rate at 4.75% versus a Fed funds rate near zero. But the turmoil generated by the US debt ceiling showdown spilled over to the Aussie, which tumbled more than 10 cents in just a few weeks. There remains one other possibility to avoid such drama in 2023. With the Democrats still in control of both houses of Congress until the 3rd of January, they have an opportunity to pass legislation in the so-called lame duck session. There will be many competing priorities in this short session, but voices including Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren have already called for the debt ceiling to be raised before Republicans take over the House. Such an outcome would be welcomed by equity markets and the Aussie dollar. Finally, one policy area that probably won't change much with a Republican-led House is the US stance on China and trade more broadly. The Biden administration has so far made only minor reductions in the Trump administration's wide-ranging tariffs. It has also expanded the range of restrictions on China's access to US technology. There's been strong bipartisan support for this hard line on China, and free trade is not seen as a vote winner by either party.